I run a division of Watson Health, which is called Watson Health Imaging. Watson Health is a wholly owned business inside IBM, and Watson Health Imaging effectively has two core product sets. We have our imaging solutions, which cover radiology, cardiology, and workflow in healthcare, which is radiology packs, cardiology packs, hemodynamic systems within the cardiology environment. And then we have a separate element of the business, which is our new cognitive and artificial intelligence applications. And we are the business unit that delivers both the infrastructure and both the cognitive applications within imaging for healthcare. Again, we cover two core areas. Around the infrastructure piece, our core value is the ability to be able to bring all of the different data together onto a single platform. Utilizing our archiving solutions, also our data sharing solutions using industry standards like XDS, our enterprise viewing technologies, which provide a single pane of glass access to all of the images and all of the data. And obviously our reporting applications which run inside our radiology and cardiology PACS solutions. They're kind of what we do around the infrastructure area. Going forward, we're now beginning to release cognitive applications. Our first cognitive application looks for differentials between what is in the clinical report and what is in the EPR. And what it does is it effectively will either highlight where a diagnosis may have been missed or where a diagnosis may be incorrect. So what it's doing is it's saying, well, okay, I see a particular disease state within the healthcare report. I don't see it as registered in the EPR, ergo something isn't correct. We're also going to be releasing, as we go forward, dedicated diagnostic applications for areas like breast, where we will diagnose lesions and cancer in the breast. We're also looking at multiple different areas, including things like bleeds in the brain and technology that will look for and analyse those bleeds in the brain. And our strategy is to look at effectively all of those diseases that affect people the most, things like cardiac disease, brain disease, liver, lungs, anywhere where effectively imaging technology can be utilised to diagnose. Other areas we're focusing on are things like the ability to use cognitive inside the electronic patient record, where a patient might present with particular symptoms, and then we can use cognitive to be able to dig in and to give a heads up for the clinician in terms of what potentially may be wrong with the patient. So again, what we're looking at is we have our existing imaging technologies, and then what we're now looking at doing is bringing forward our cognitive technologies. Well, I think the biggest problem with going paper-free is that historically the means by which a hospital would go paper-free is to be able to classify the data. If you think about a patient record is made up of multiple different types of paper documents, which include things like reports. It includes, again, lots of different physical documents. The problem is each one of those documents has to be classified, and classification is generally a labour-intensive process, which involves literally just taking each document and then choosing what pile it goes onto, and then the next step then is to digitise through scanning. Well, that in itself is extremely long-winded and costly. Classification of data clearly is going to be the biggest barrier to hospitals going digital. Now, hospitals then have one or two choices. Do they go day forward digital? In other words, everything they do from day one gets digitised, which in itself is very valuable. But the problem is that then all the historic data cannot be taken advantage of. However, should they choose to take advantage of the historic data, they've then got to go through this classification process. So I believe that the biggest barrier to actually delivering a paperless NHS is going to be this process of classification. One of the great things about cognitive is its ability to understand unstructured data. Now, one of the real upsides of hospitals going forward with cognitive applications is that we will be able to use those cognitive applications to do some of that classification for them. So, assuming that hospitals can move forward with a kind of a hybrid classification and cognitive application, then I believe that going paperless is going to be a lot more efficient. But again, if you have to go through a formal classification of the data, I believe that's going to be the real bottleneck, the real problem for hospitals to go truly paper-free. It has to be cognitive. The ability for applications to be able to diagnose disease on behalf of the clinician. Now again, our strategy is to work with clinicians in order to be able to provide technology which will enhance what they do and will help them do their jobs better. But the real game changer, particularly in my world around the imaging space, is going to be the development of cognitive applications. Those applications that will physically diagnose and provide that diagnosis feedback directly to the clinicians. I think they're great for a number of reasons. For me, one of the biggest difficulties is being able to get close to the key decision makers within a hospital. These environments give us the capacity to be able to have a grown-up conversation with a CIO, with a CCIO, in an environment where they can both get a better understanding of what the vendor does, as well as having the capacity to be able to share that information with other people and to get a kind of a common feel. So the HIMSS ELS for me are fantastic for that reason alone. Just the capacity to be able to get and sit down and have a quality conversation with a clinician.